And now's a good time to go on mute.
Thanks, Ian. I'll start. What we're going to go through in this meeting is we're going to review a little bit about 2022, talk about some of the key initiatives that we brought into 2022, how we did on that, and then wrap up with some of the initiatives that we have going into 2023. So just to start out first, this is the end of my 3-year term as president. It's been occasionally difficult, sometimes fun, and I'm looking forward to going back to hopefully racing a little more and presidenting a little less. But it's been good because I think it's important for everyone to take a turn. Doing this, helping the club. This is a club of racers, for racers. We've got a very good diversity of board members here, both geographically and in race group or car type, and in real life expertise. We have technical people, we have business people, we have some people who have expertise in the automotive industry, and we even have an attorney in case we should need one. Hopefully we don't, but in case we do, we have one. So just to wrap up in a real quick high level thing, I would say that this was 2022 was a good year for VRG, but it wasn't our best year. We did some things very well. We have some challenges that we need to work on and address moving forward. It certainly was far from our worst year as well. And you're going to hear a little bit about that in the upcoming presentations by the different board members. One of the things that we need to do to differentiate ourselves as a club, and we need to be fair and honest and recognize what we are as a club. We're a club, we're a nonprofit club. We exist to allow our members, our racer members, to race and to race when they want, where they want, as much as possible. And it's our job to make sure that as a club, we continue to support that and continue to make decisions that will benefit the greatest number of racers. Not necessarily everything will be ideal for any one person or any one type of car or any one type of geographic location, but as a club, we're an aggregate that needs to operate for the benefit of all. One of the things that I found really important, and we did a lot to work on that this year, was paddock integration across the race groups. We want to make sure that, people are identifying with VRG as VRG, not a subgroup of VRG, not the BMW racers of VRG or the MG racers of VRG. We want to be integrated across the group, and we've made some efforts in that regard. That's really all I have to say before I hand it over to Scott to talk about our finances. Scott, you're muted.
I was muted. Sorry about that. I'm Scott Jansen. I've been treasurer for several years now. So if you've listened to our general meeting before, you've heard a similar report. So I'll keep it short. From a financial perspective, we started 2022 with a cash balance of about $197,000. That might sound like a lot of money, and it is. But that sort of balance in our account is our working capital that's necessary for us to pay large deposits to the tracks shortly after signing the contracts, pay for insurance and other deposits for various costs associated with putting on events. And those costs are usually incurred well before the revenues start coming in, the entry fees. So the balance also provides coverage for losses, such as a few years ago, 2018 actually, when several of our events were rained out, where we largely incurred the cost, but we had greatly reduced or no revenues. So it's sort of it's an insurance policy, let's say that. At the end of 2021, with respect to this particular balance, we also still had an unpaid Turkey Bowl track rental charge and a Glen cost. So our effective ending cash balance was really about $20,000 lower. So call it $197,000, $177,000. Of course, we have expenses and we have revenue. So let's look briefly at each of those separately. First are the major expenses. The single largest category by far is track rental fees. And these ranged in 2023 from a low of $29,000 for an event to a high of $84,000 for an event, or 2022, I'm sorry. We basically covered the track rental cost for 5 events, so you can see how that would add up. There's also event insurance. There are other associated costs with putting on the different events and for putting on our driver development programs. And these expenses exist at what I'd call a fixed level. We pay the same amount to put them on, regardless of how many entries we have at a given race event. And each year, these expenses usually increase several percent, especially this year and projected in 2023 with the higher inflation in the background. Non-event costs are a component too. They're much more limited, but advertising, things like equipment such as radios for event workers, there's some overall club insurance. There are a few other minor costs. And so then talking about revenue, again, the major sources of revenue are primarily race event entry fees, followed in a distant second place by membership fees, and then entry fees for our driver development programs. Those are our only sources of revenue. We have no other revenue sources. So how do we do in 2022? Well, all of our revenues covered all of our costs with a modest profit. So that's a good thing. As I said earlier, a few of last year's expenses carried over into this year. Those basically offset that nominal profit. So it looks like we're going to end the year this year with about the same cash balance as we started with. And that's a good outcome given where our balance started. However, we did have a few events this year where the event costs exceeded the revenue generated. So we're going to need to take a hard look at how we run those events in the future to try to bring things into balance. And again, as I said, given the inflationary environment, we do expect to see increases in track rental costs and some other costs in 2023. With that, I'll turn the podium over to, I think it's Niall for the Secretary's report.
Okay, thanks, Scott. I'm Niall McCabe. I'm the secretary, actually the outgoing secretary. And I have a couple of things to report on today. First of all, membership. I think the general comment here would be to say that membership is solid. I'll give you some numbers in a minute, but I just want to make sure I credit John Faulkner because honestly, he's been toiling away at membership for almost 20 years. He's just one of those guys in the background with VRG that's just done a lot of this work. We're in the middle of a sort of a transition over to an automated membership system with MSR. They're the folks that do our registration. And Faulkner's been terrific with this. He's helped us through the last almost 20 years of success with VRG. Anyway, our current membership is close to 600. It kind of varies. It's always changing. There's people dropping out. There's people coming in. But right now in 2022, as of today, we have just under 600 people. We have a couple of different groups. We have regular members, single members. Most of those are just individual racers. I think we have about 390 of those as of today. we have family members. We have a family membership thing. It's kind of an anomaly. Typically, 2 people are in the family. They can join for $150 rather than a single membership for $100. And we have 139 of those folks. We have some life members. It's just part of the founders, people like that. We have 39 of those. We have complimentary members, people like magazine editors, those kinds of folks. And we have a small number of 5 members that are volunteer members. They're just a special little category. So all over, we have just under 600 total members, and the majority of those, but not all of them, are paying members. I would say probably a good sign for VRG in terms of the present date is that normally each year we get about 40 new members. We have, we have some loss, and we have some gain. This year we've had 56 new members, so that's a good thing. That probably shows that we're going in the positive direction. It's probably useful to think about how trends work in terms of membership. And if we go back to, say, 2013, almost 10 years ago, we had about 550 members, and we slowly worked our way up. By 2017, we had about 650 members, and we kind of held that up to 2019. So we've had roughly 650 members at 2017, 2018, 2019. Then, like everybody else in the world, COVID hit. We took a hit. We actually went down from about 650 members to about 600. And then that's in 2021. And then, I'm sorry, that's in 2020. And then in 2021, we went down another few members. So we went down to about 575. Now, 2022, we're back up to about 600. So we've kind of reversed, just as COVID has kind of backed off and things have gotten more positive, we have gotten more positive. And that's especially true with respect to our new membership. Some of that is generated by probably our schools, lots of different things, just probably the good PR we have. So I think we're on the right track. I think we had the same COVID bump that probably lots of industries and groups had, but I think we're in the right direction. One of the other tasks I have today is to just talk about the elections. You heard a minute ago that Mike Lawton said he's on his way out. I mean that in a positive way, and I am too. So Mike and I have reached our maximum term limits based on the bylaws of VRG. So we're both leaving this year, and thus, we need at least 2 new board members. And after the election, the 2 board members that are now new to us are Drew Cullen and John Jeffrey. So those are our 2 members. And I should also say Paul King won his election. So we have those three folks. 2 of them are new, Drew Cullen and John Jeffrey. So they'll be taking over positions. Later on after this meeting, we'll get together in sort of a parliamentary type arrangement and decide upon who the new president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer will be. But actually, I'm sorry, just the president and the secretary will be. And then from there, of course, the club will move as it always does. Probably the last thing I should say is just thanks to the other people that put their hat in the ring to try to run for election, even if they didn't win. It's really important, as Mike just said previously, that we all kind of do our share, put on our little bit. So keep that in mind as we go forward. The club survives basically because of the volunteers. We do a lot with, actually, if you think about what Scott just said, we do a lot with not a lot of money. And part of that is because of the value of our volunteers. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mike, I think.
Yes, so the next section of the meeting, we're going to talk about some of the initiatives that we had carrying into 2022, some from prior years, some new ones this year. And the first one is back to Scott to talk about building a buffer in our bank account so that we can recover from an emergency.
Okay. And I'm going to go back to 2018 because that was the year that sort of triggered this whole conversation, where we had a number of events, including the Jefferson, which were basically washed out. We had enormous numbers of cancellations and some significant losses. So we ended 2018 with $67,000 in the account. And that was barely enough to start making deposits at the beginning of 2019. In fact, we were sort of relying on incoming membership renewals to help subsidize us to keep the monies flowing out to make the commitments. And so looking at that, we said, wow, we really we need more money in the bank. So 2020, we gradually recovered from that bad year. We had a couple of good years, one in particular. 2020 year end, 2019, we got up to $91,000. 2020, we got up to $105,000. And then 2021 was really a record year for us. I think the tracks held down their expenses coming out of the pandemic. Everybody came back racing. And net of all the expenses, we ended up, as I said earlier, with $177,000 in the bank. And this year, it's probably going to be more like 190. So we're comfortable. We don't need to build this anymore. But we want to keep an eye on it and stay healthy. And back to, looks like an MSR topic.
To be Ian to talk about the moving membership to Motorsport Reg.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me all right. And I'll just restate, because I have the opportunity in the mic, if you have questions, ask the board at vrgonline.org, or you can ask them in the chat. Maybe we can table this one to a little bit later in the meeting, but Mr. Mac McCormick has asked if Mike Lawton can go into a bit more detail on those 2022 initiatives you mentioned. What were they? Were they effective? I believe we've touched on a bit of that stuff, so we can visit it a bit later. So I'll take a quick minute here. I'm going to talk about two things. I'm going to talk about the logbooks and how that process is currently functioning, as well as a bit more color on how the MSR membership function is going to work here. Now, give me a moment while I try to be a bit fancy in how I do my streaming presentation here. Now, you should be seeing here on your page on the stream the logbooks for the Vintage Racer Group. So vrgonline.org/logbooks. That's either one word, LOGBOOKS, or you can put a dash between log and books. It'll get you to the same place. If you want to get a logbook, all of the rules, regulations for that are described here on this page. And then notably, there is an online logbook application. You click that and you fill out information about yourself and your car, attach pictures if you have them. If not, typically when I'm at an event, I can take those pictures and print them at the track and glue them into your book. It's a pretty quick process. Now, the way this is going to work for 2023, generally we have logbook issuing events, and those are usually events where we have a fairly large contingent of VRG members at an event. Last year that would have been the Jefferson 500, the PVGP pit race event, and then typically either Watkins Glen or Turkey Bowl. Similar for next year, the Jefferson 500, PVGP pit race, and then Watkins Glen. If you're not going to be at any of those events, we can coordinate those outside of those events in some form or fashion, but do keep in mind that if it's a car that's new to VRG or new to yourself, both tech is going to have to take a look at the car, and eligibility also needs to take a look at it to make sure that it's in appropriate prep given its vintage. Now we've done around about 20 books over the course of 2022. Some of those are continuations when you filled up your book. Others are new cars to the VRG, which is always a good thing. That means we've got some new toys to go out and play with. So that's tracking, year to year. 2021, we did a similar around about 20-ish books. The J500 winds up being about the busiest event due to the number of cars that are there. So if I'm personally running around looking a bit frazzled at the event, it's generally because we're doing a good job with the logbooks. So again, vrgonline.org/logbooks, and that'll take you to this page that we're seeing here on the stream right now. And then just below the header there is the online logbook application. And then all the other details you need are covered there. Now, we're going to go to MSR and membership renewal. Now, typically historically we've used an online, a paper process to renew our memberships, but we're in the process of moving that over to Motorsport Reg, MSR, as we use for all of our event registrations. Quick shortcut to get to this, and during the race season, any of our other events that we're doing registration in MSR, vrg.motorsportreg.com. We will be updating this here shortly with the updated VRG logo. But just enter that into your web browser, vrg.motorsportreg.com. That'll list all of the currently open events that we're taking registrations for, including membership, either new or renewal. And when you click that link, and that runs all year long, you then are taken to this page. Describes the registration process. It's just like registering for a race event. Click continue, log into your MSR account. Select that you want to either renew or purchase a new membership. If there's additional information required, you'll be prompted during the course of that, much like you are in an event registration. If maybe there's some details about either your car or your medical or membership information that are missing, you can pay through the site. You can also pay still via check, just like we do with our events if you don't want to put a credit card in. And then you can mail that check to, as Niall mentioned before, John Faulkner, who's doing everybody and has been doing everybody a great favor by managing membership here. And then the best part about this is that MSR will mail you your hard card in the mail a couple of weeks after you do your renewal. Pretty fancy. You can put that in your wallet and take it to the track with you. You also get a PDF copy of your membership, so you can keep that in or on your phone should you happen to leave your membership at home. So that's a quick rundown as to what's going on with membership renewals within MSR and Logbooks. And I think that is my time for the moment. And then I think up next, we're going to go to John Wood. We're going to talk about some black flag procedures.
Hey, thanks, Ian, for that update. On Black Flag, I think at various events, people are aware that we've had some issues with drivers missing black flags or black flags difficult to see. You know, I think there's a number of factors here. Sometimes the black flags blend in with dark backgrounds and they're just really hard to see. Sometimes the flag's blowing in the wind, which makes it small and also hard to see. And quite frankly, sometimes drivers just aren't paying sufficient attention and they're missing the flags altogether. All of these factors are contributing at different times, and it has been an issue. So, you know, the board has recently discussed this. We've put together a small team of very experienced VRG members to collaborate on different ideas about how we can make things better going forward. We don't have a solution to present to you today, but I just want you to know that we're working on this and stay tuned. We'll likely communicate this through a newsletter and at event drivers meetings in 2023. So stay tuned on that. The second thing I wanted to cover is on volunteers. We've already had several people on this meeting talking about how, you know, we're a nonprofit volunteer-run club. I think that's a strong reminder that everybody needs to keep in mind. When you attend a race event, you usually see many of the same familiar faces and friends who are working hard to volunteer their time and effort to put on a great race event. These people that you see continually, whether they're registration, tech, race control, drivers committee, people at the school, you know, these are the faces of VRG. None of these people are paid for their time. We have a couple of people that are non-racers that we reimburse their travel expenses for that are in critical functions. But again, the familiar faces you see over and over again that are racers, you know, these are volunteers. Nobody's getting paid for this. We do this because we love the VRG atmosphere. We've made a lot of good friends and we want to see VRG continue and succeed. We can't expect the same people to be volunteering their time forever. And we're continually looking at where we have needs and where we have people that might be able to step in and help out. In 2022, we reached out and asked several new people to help with our drivers committee and our school. The vast majority of people that we reached out to stepped forward and said, yes, they would be up for helping out. And that is very much appreciated. As we look forward, we're always keeping an eye out for where we have needs and where we think people might be good fits. If you think you have a skill set or would like to help out in a particular area, reach out to me or any of the other board members or any of the other critical functional leaders and just start the conversation. because this is, as Mike said at the beginning and other people have mentioned, this is a volunteer club run by racers for racers. It's all up to us to keep this good thing going. Okay, so that's what I have for today. I think I'm going to turn it over to Keith to just touch base on our schedule.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Keith Lawrence from Pittsburgh. I represent kind of the left coast of the VRG club. I was asked to talk about the 2023 schedule. Probably the most important thing to remember from this is the events are available online at vrgonline.org, all the information. As events open up, they become populated on the website. The second most important thing is the new members guide to race events, and it's a very helpful document. It kind of lets you know about who's running what, who owns what tasks within that event, because as most people know, there's VRG hosted events, and then there's events that we are co-hosting or maybe just partner with. So for the first event, which is March 31st, we return to the VIR track, which is an amazing track. And that's hosted by the VDCA. It's probably one of the best world-class facilities in the country as far as overall facility. And it's a great racetrack, and VDCA is a good club. Then we go to April 24th, which is one of our newer events, which is the Advanced School and Refresher Clinic. That's something that's brand new. I think this is the second year for it, if I'm correct. So that's something for experienced racers. If you really want to look at trying to get some more track time, we all put money into our cars, but we need to remember to keep putting money into our driver skills. Then we go to Summit Point, which is May 16th for the driver school, and May 18th. Both of those events have been amazingly successful. I mean, most of us on this call have mentored, instructed, or even been in the school, and probably everybody on this call knows somebody or is one of the successful graduates of that program, with the following weekend full of racing and amazing race groups. Then we go to June 22nd, and we go to the Vintage Motorsports Festival. This year's the 10th annual, so it's kind of an important date for that. We co-host that with the VSCCA. A lot of us older folks with the gray hair remember the VSCCA because that's who we raced with prior to the VRG's creation. It's a really good event. Unfortunately, I haven't raced there. I've been there to watch it, but I haven't had the opportunity to race. I understand it's a really fun track. Then we go into July 14th, which is Left Coast Racing with the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix here in Pittsburgh. I think it's probably one of the best tracks in the country, and they're soon to be probably one of the best facilities because they haven't been there in a year or two. They continue to build new facilities, new buildings. It's just incredible. The event is amazing. And it's 3 days, and I believe there's a test day too that you can run. Put on by the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix, which has been around for well over 30 years. September 1st, we go to the Lime Rock Historic Festival, and we co-sanction this event with the VSCCA again. And this is a really amazing event, more than just racing. There's activities, parades, concourse, and this is at the historic Lime Rock racetrack. Then we have our VRG at Watkins Glen, which is September 22nd. Probably one of the best events to go to if you want some amazing track time. And it is one of the historic racetracks in the country. So if you haven't been there, definitely get out there and get your car on that track. October 13th, we go back to New Jersey. And that's the event that last year kind of came back, and I think it had some pretty decent success. And we really want to try and fill that event up because I know many of us love that facility, love those two tracks. So try to put that on your schedule and support that event. Then we finish off the year as we do at the Turkey Bowl, which I know this year, unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to, which is one of the few times I missed it. But it was a great event. A lot of my buddies were there. Actually, it's a great time to test out new cars. And I know a couple of my buddies had new cars. We're testing them out and trying to get them ready for this 2023 season. So again, the key things to remember, lots of great events. Not all of them are specifically VRG hosted by themselves, but check out our website and don't forget to look at the members guide to the race events. A lot of good information. So thanks for your time. I'll turn it over to Graham.
Good morning, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Graham Long. I'm a director on the board of VRG. I'm also a tech inspector, and I run a professional prep restoration shop in New Jersey. So I'm going to give you a little insight for tech this year, some things to note, some things we're slightly concerned about, and maybe some information on some things that can help you move forward and make your car safer. Because ultimately our club's focus is on to have safe and fun racing. So, so generally speaking, we're pretty pleased with the prep that we see on the cars that show up at the track. And we also understand that many of these cars are maintained, assembled, and taken care of by the owners. Just two things we really would like to focus on, keep an eye on next year. One of those is safety harnesses, belts. We're going to have pretty much a zero tolerance policy for expired belts or belts that are in poor condition. And we frankly don't feel this is too much of a thing to nitpick at. Belts are really available nowadays, very good belts at a really inexpensive price. And more likely they're less than the cost of the fuel you're paying for the race weekend. So we want to see good belts in the cars. Something else we really want to focus on are fuel cells. We're still seeing non-compliant cells show up in cars that require cells. And these non-compliant type fuel tanks that are showing up are the plastic only type jazz cells or cheap, inexpensive Summit Racing or JEGS type tanks. So we want to make sure that everybody's running a compliant fuel cell. And from what I gather, we will be making this information a bit more available to the drivers on our website or through some other information. And some other notes, we're sure everybody out there is diligently working on their cars during these winter months to make sure they're prepared for next year and going over them very closely. But we'd like to recommend that maybe you grab a friend that's maybe a bit more advanced technically than you are, or has more experience in maintaining their car or racing their car, or perhaps even reach out to a prep shop or a professional automotive service that is good, and maybe drop your car off and just have it glanced over to get that other perspective on critically looking over the car and see if you missed anything. Because frankly, we have found a few cars that have shown up with some structural integrity issues and some other pretty dangerous things that the owner just missed, and possibly it was because of a lack of education or expertise, or just because they're so used to looking at their own car, they glanced over it. So do yourselves a favor and have a good friend or, again, a professional check your car out for some of these other critical things. So keep up the good work in preparing the cars. We really look forward to racing with you next year. So we'll see you out on the track. Passing it along to the next person.
So next up is Butch to talk about our event partnerships. And so it's all yours, Butch.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I'm Butch O'Connor. I've been on the board for a while. Most of you know me, I think, as an EC down at New Jersey. And just to say, follow up with what Keith said, please show up next year. We really need the entries. I get asked frequently as an EC, why do we have partners and why these partnerships exist? And I thought I might spend a couple of minutes explaining to you why that happens. I think most of you know the why is the cost of renting these tracks is extraordinary. And frequently, unless we wanted to raise our entry fees significantly, we look for partners to take a race group or sometimes even two. When we do that, we're doing it to keep the cost of racing down for our members, which is very important to most of us. We have several different kinds of partnerships, I'm going to call them. You've already heard Keith speak about them, and they're different. The one at VIR is very interesting. We're a co-sponsor with VDCA, and they run the event. We don't really have much input other than to have our members go at the VDCA member price. Other events, you'll see a partnership with a club like BMW, which you saw if you were at New Jersey last year. And you see that also at Watkins Glen. Again, those two tracks are very expensive, and having BMW come in and take a race group really helps us keep the costs down. The other types of partnerships we have are like at Pit Race or Lime Rock. There, we are usually a partner, but we don't really take full obligation responsibility for paying the fees. So what we do is participate as a volunteer with our drivers committee, for example, or whatever. We do help a lot with those organizations, but they are run by either PVGP or Lime Rock. It's their event and they control it. The other types of partnerships, are a little bit different in that respect. We kind of control or do control our partnerships with BMW, for example. If you have a question about this, please reach out to me or any of the other board members. The partnership way we run these things keeps those costs down and allows us to run good events. And we still get plenty of track time. That's all I have. Thank you.
So the next topic up is for Paul to talk about the school, and just a quick moment. The school is our school. There's a lot of work that's gone into this. We consider it on par with a professional quality school that you might pay quite a substantial amount more money for, and the school fills up every year. It's one of the differentiators I think we have as a club, is our ability to thoroughly train new drivers. So Paul, with that, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Paul Kane. Most of you probably know me over the years as the EC at Thompson for a number of years since the inception of the event. I'm also involved as the EC at the Historic Festival at Lime Rock, as well as heavily involved with the driving school as one of the leadership instructors. And to Mike's point, we've really put a lot of time and effort in the last 2 years in the school to improve the performance. I want to go over 3 areas quickly with everyone just to review what we're doing and with the school. One of them is improvements we've made, the limitations that we have with operating the school, and then kind of give you an insight by the numbers what the results have been. The improvements, basically, we focused on 6 specific areas of focus. One was the mission, and probably the biggest change we made this year was adding an advanced and refresher clinic in April. Denny Austin as chief instructor has been tireless with trying to expand the offerings of the school in general. So that was a very, very successful event this year. And it also basically in a recognition of having an advanced clinic, as well as what we now are basically calling our licensing school. We officially are referring to the driving school of VRG as the driver development program, because at this point it encompasses much more than just what the licensing school focused on. We also, the second area we focused on is organization. As I say, chief instructor and event co-chair is Dennis Austin, and he's done a tireless job of developing the school since he came on board. We have made a few operational changes to take some of the load off of Denny's plate. One is I'm basically the co-event. He's a co-chief of school operations with me, so I work hand in hand with Storm in developing the schedule and so forth. We have brought on a couple new people in the leadership roles. One is Henry Fry, a fellow Triumph racer, and he's very capable. He brings a lot of skills to the table in terms of technologically, and he comes on as a deputy chief of school operations to help me out. He was involved with the school the last few years as an instructor. And also, some of you may know, but Greg Haas has been an instrumental asset for the development of the school. He runs the Summit Point Racing development programs at Summit Point. And he's coming on and to help Denny as a deputy chief instructor. One of the things we are doing these efforts for is to make sure our bench strength as we grow is there, because I know John's touched on it. We always need new volunteers as successors. One of the other, and to that point, this third area we focus on is instructor development. We offer what they call a Friday at the Track clinic at Summit Point every year, usually in February. And most of our instructors are actively encouraged to take this course, 1.5 day course. It's a fabulous addition to improve their skill set as an instructor. One of the other things that we always do is, and we're looking to iterate what John Wood mentioned, we're looking for volunteers all the time. And if any of you are considering helping out in the driver's school, we would love to have you. One of the areas we usually try to start you out is with our track exercise team, in our car control clinic part of the school. And it's a great way to see if you really want to get involved with the school. And I encourage any of you to do that. Also, we've improved the response or improved the communication and the hierarchy with the instructors. We're making sure that every student that signs up actually has an instructor assigned to him, as well as those instructors answer to a group lead instructor. The focus on the content and delivery has improved. We did many editorial changes to the content in 2022 for the 2022 school, clarified some of the roles and responsibilities, and actually increased the outreach to the students. The students actually that sign up for the school are well-versed in what to expect way before they show up on Tuesday for the school. Participant experience is the next focus. We decompressed the schedule by adding a half a day to the schedule, which has improved the response tremendously and takes a little stress off the students. The school now starts on Tuesday evening and runs through midway through Thursday, where the graduates are entered into the Jefferson 500 practice schedule if they've signed up for the event. The student level, focus on the student level, as I mentioned, the licensing school is now almost exclusively for entry level, and that's our focus now, where we have the advanced refresher clinic, and that's for experienced drivers or drivers that haven't raced for a while. And I think that has really helped clarify the expectations as far as our students for the licensing school. We do have limitations for what we can do, and one is just the bandwidth for our instructor level. We basically, since 2017, have limited the number of students for the licensing school to 27. That's 3 student groups of 9 each. We feel that that's the optimum level. We have basically, after we got canceled out for 2020 with COVID, we knew we were going to have quite a bit of demand for 2021. And in 2021, we actually offered up to 36 students for the group, but it turned out it was a very, very difficult task for this instructor cadre. So we've reverted back to the optimum of 27 for the licensing school, with the possibility, if we have the demand, up to 30, but that would be the absolute max we can do. For the clinic, for the advanced clinic, we have limited it to 18. And we feel that's an optimum. The key is, because of instructor not capability, but bandwidth, we want to limit how many students each instructor has to basically be responsible for. And by the numbers, I'll give you one of the keys that VRG as a board is always looking at, and Mike Lawton touched on it. What really is the value? What is the value that this offers to the club because it's probably the most complicated and time-consuming activity that the club participates in, is running these schools. And I'll give you a key number. and we have the basically to check these metrics now. So in 2021, we had 35 attended the school. We had 32 graduate, but we can track how that has affected participation in VRG events. It turns out that graduating class of 32 generated for 2021 and 2022 an additional 100 entrants that you can basically extrapolate. If you hadn't had that school and those graduates, and that's, if you just extrapolate out at a $500 entry fee, that's a significant revenue generator for our club. And additional to that, it also basically is one of the key drivers for new membership. We've seen that anecdotally, that a lot of the new students are younger, thank God, and it's really has made a tremendous difference. Even for the clinic, for the advanced refresher clinic that we did this year, we had 13 were advanced, 3 were drivers that had raced before, 18. But even those 18 entrants for that participated in 2022 in 47 VRG events. So obviously there's a correlation between participation, interest in participation in the events, and what we've done with the school. So in summation, I basically want it's rather apparent that the VRG driver development program is a significant driver in our effort, our club's effort, to have more safe vintage drivers in the club, and it is a major contributor to our growth and membership. And with that, I'll turn it over to John, I believe.
Thanks, Paul. I think the next thing Mike and I were going to try to cover is just some initiatives for 2023 going forward. I don't think we have a long list here. I think we will have a lot of good things going here, but one thing that the board has kicked around is kind of taking a fresh top to bottom review of our rule set and all the supporting documentation. If you look at our rules on the website, I think they're organized pretty well, but there are also several different documents that are kind of linked with inside the rule set. I just think we need to take a fresh look and think about, is there a way to streamline or clean that up so it's maybe a little bit easier to navigate? And with John and Drew coming onto the board, this is something we're going to ask them to kind of take a fresh look at just from a new set of eyes perspective. But as we work through that, to the extent we do make change, we'll probably make some refinements to the rules, but as we kind of clean up the organization of it, we'll probably communicate that through a newsletter kind of communication later in the year, or early in 2023 rather. So that's the only initiative type of thing I have on my list. Mike, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, the only thing I would say on top of that is just and to be responsive to Mac's question, that Ian dictated to us, that when we went into 2022, we had a number of initiatives which we've covered. Things like build and keep the operating capital around $150,000, and I think we can check that one off as complete. I think that through the last couple of years, there's been a great effort in that regard, and that was an initiative that was loud and clear several years ago, and I think we can call that one complete. Moving membership process, another one. Moving membership process to Motorsport Reg. Of course, we thank John for all his tireless work on the membership, but putting the membership information into Motorsports Reg helps us do some more of the analytics that Paul was just doing, as far as the number of times that the school entrants have raced. We can look at geographical distribution of our racers and see if that points us to adding races, dropping races, and so on. But there are a number of different initiatives that both that we've gone over that are closed, and then, as John said, the main one going into 2023 is to take a look at the rules and try to streamline them so they're a little more user-friendly. And I would say that leaves us a few minutes to take any questions other than, or any questions that Ian, you may have to share.
Sure thing, Mike. Thanks. Not too many questions, but we at least have a couple of notes. But there are at least two relevant questions. I'll read and address those. Starting off with MSR membership, question was, will the existing members get a prompt about renewing their membership within MSR? It's not automated within MSR, but we will be sending out emails, much like we have historically, as John has sent out, to say that your membership is coming up for expiration, and then remind you to go and visit Motorsport Reg, then to complete your online renewal. In addition to that, there was a question about updating medicals. As most of us familiar with MSR know, you can maintain your medical within your MSR racer profile, so you can upload it yourself into that. Additionally, you are also able to snail mail that to John Faulkner and VRG membership to get those things updated. And then if there is a problem with your medical, as in it's out of date at the time which you renew, we'll do our best to catch that and make sure that it's updated and current, so that when you go to your next event, you have a current recent medical and you can go out there and go racing. From our friends over at HRG, they would like to extend their thanks for including us at both our Thompson and Glen events, and they're looking forward to joining us again in 2023. And I think we don't have any problem passing along that HRG is inviting any cars that may be eligible for their series to come race with us at their Lime Rock event in June, their July night race at Thompson, which sounds like an exciting one, all under the lights, no headlights required. I'll leave that to the HR boys and HRG friends and anybody else who wants to go run there. And then they also have an event coming up at Summit Point end of July that they're inviting any VRG members to. So thanks to HRG for their participation with us, and looking forward to seeing them next year. But on that note, Mike, there's nothing else sitting in the chat, and I'm refreshing my email here, and I don't see anything additionally. So I guess I'll take then the opportunity to say that before we sign off here, anybody who's watched this, if you want to revisit things, this will be on our YouTube page. That's youtube.com/Vintage Racer Group. Additionally, it's on Facebook at Vintage Racer Group, so you can go back and revisit this long after we hang up here today. That way, if you missed anything, you can go back and refresh your memory. And that's all I have from the inbox, Mr. President.
Well, I guess that concludes the meeting. Thank you all for thanks to my fellow board members for all your contribution, and thank you those who are watching for all your participation and any future questions you may have. These are the people who would love to answer them for you, and so seek out anyone you see in a picture here at any of the races, and any one of us would love to talk to you about any suggestions, any ideas, any feedback, anything. So thank you for your attention, and thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you soon. See you out there.